The Global Business Summit was held recently in the national capital to celebrate the present and anticipate the future. Since its inception in 2015, the Global Business Summit has emerged as Asia's premier meeting place where global thought leaders and experts congregate to discuss ideas and actions for the future. It is an unparalleled gathering where we not only reflect on the past and present, but also anticipate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in the ever-evolving global business landscape. The gala event was graced by the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. During his address from the podium of ET Now GBS, PM Modi proudly announced that the world has now reposed its trust in India and this is India's time.
साथियों, हम एक वेलफेयर स्टेट है। देश के सामान्य मानवी का जीवन आसान हो, उसकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ सुधरे, ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है। हमने नई योजनाएं बनाई वो तो स्वाभाविक है, बल्कि हमने ये भी सुनिश्चित किया कि हर पात्र लाभार्थी तक ये योजना का लाभ पहुंचना चाहिए। हमने सिर्फ वर्तमान पर ही नहीं, बल्कि देश के भविष्य पर भी इन्वेस्ट किया। आप ध्यान देंगे तो हमारे हर बजट में आपको 4 प्रमुख फैक्टर्स नजर आएंगे। पहला, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर के रूप में रिकॉर्ड प्रोडक्टिव खर्च। दूसरा, वेलफेयर स्कीम्स पर अनप्रेसिडेंटेड निवेश। तीसरा, वेस्टफुल एक्सपेंडिचर पर कंट्रोल। और चौथा, फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन। इन 4 बातों को आपने बराबर देखा होगा। हमने इन चारों विषयों में संतुलन बिठाया और चारों विषयों में ही तय लक्ष्य प्राप्त करके दिखाए।
The ET Now Global Business Summit 2024 was attended by a huge number of international delegates who hailed from more than 20 countries, making it a truly global gathering. The 2 days of the landmark event had curated brainstorming sessions which provided profound insights into critical issues and future trends. This year's theme was concurrent to the current world order and it revolved around disruption, development and diversification. The session was based on the topic of CX in 2030, orchestrating the future of CX, where Raja Lakshmipati, VP and MD of Genesys India and SAARC region, along with an array of industry doyens, focused their views on customer experience. Take a look.
Let me open up this forum to get your views in terms of who do you see as a North Star when it comes to customer experience, and how as a company you are trying to reach there? What are the challenges?
Amazon is definitely, should be the North Star because they're obsessed with customer experience. If I talk about Ferns and Petal, I mean, for us, delivering the special experience is very important.
What is that data telling you?
Right.
Is the customer coming back to you? And we are into enterprise businesses, so once there is a contract ending, is the customer wanting to renegotiate or restart with you? Or sometimes when they leave, are they coming back to you? And in a very short span of time coming back to you, that gives a much more confidence to us.
On top of all the experiences, personalization, unification, how you are managing consents, how you are protecting data, how you are protecting financial information, while partnering with various ecosystem partners becomes a key factor.
We do not store anything centrally anywhere. And one of the big good example of this is the moment you delete your app, everything is gone.
Customers today are not just looking at a product in silo, right? They are looking at a product, but they are also looking at the story of the product.
You have to properly, transform the data, and then we need to identify which customer is looking at what product.
So for us also, customer cohorting is what creates an edge for us. Like getting the right customer cohorts and pitching them the right thing at the right time. I think that makes a difference.
Our North Star for ourselves in this industry. And that brings more owners and more importance for us because you need to keep on creating pioneer and industry first practices for our customers.
For everyone, the experience is different. So today, generally, what we do is we basically look at their age and their health metrics to basically consider how well we are progressing.
Today, research shows that only less than 15% of the data, structured data, is put to use by people. I mean, this is a deluge of data. Data is the new oil, but unfortunately, we are not making full use of it. Right? I mean, so this is another thing, obviously, kind of look at it. And I like what you said, Parampreet, in terms of you can't manage CX without managing EX. So your EX becomes a major point of view, right? I mean, a business employee obviously is not going to direct your customers, obviously. So it's amazing.
Yes. When customer is on our platform, doing selection or so micro segmentation of that customer becomes very, very important for us, that what kind of products he is going through.
Being a B2B player, you have to ensure that seamless workflow for either a UI-based application or on API happens smoothly without any broken transactions. So that's where travel really is kind of evolving.
We serve consumers like all of us on one side, and we have service professionals who are usually low to middle income service providers who would be electricians or salon professionals and so on.
Right, thank you all for your time, your patience, and sharing your views with us.
After the brainstorming session, where Raja Lakshmipati also took out time for an exclusive interview with ET Now and talked about his company Genesys India, here are some takeaways.
Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, sir, for the benefit of our viewers, if you could tell us more about Genesys, introduce the company to the audience in terms of its customers, employees, objectives, mission and vision, and the innovation in R&D that you're championing internally.
Genesys is a global leader in the cloud customer experience and contact center solutions. Through our cloud offering, we orchestrate billions of interactions for more than 7,500 customers over 100 countries.
Right.
Our vision is to orchestrate experience in each one of those billion interactions to drive empathy and also deliver experience as a service.
Sure.
You asked about India, coming to India.
Please.
In the last 10 years, we have grown 10 times to become the largest, engineering and R&D center outside of the US.
Phenomenal.
On the business side, if you look at it, we launched our in-country Genesys Cloud node in the year 2021, which enabled a lot of Indian organizations to consume cloud as per the local regulations and the law of the land. And the customers across multiple verticals, predominantly in the BPO segment, but also in the FSI, retail, hospitality, and so on and so forth. But yeah, apart from the business, if you actually look at it, we take our ESG charter very seriously.
Sure.
And globally, we want to kind of become carbon neutral by the year 2030.
Well, sir, we certainly look forward to that. And I've got a follow-up question for you, because Genesys time and time again prioritizes customer experience. How so? And given the change in expectations from the customer, how are you constantly iterating on that experience?
See, the customer experience evolved over a period of time. If you actually look at it, the brand experience has got two major portions. One is the product experience and the other one is the customer experience. Now, leaving aside the product experience, the customer experience in itself evolved over a period of last 3-4 decades, right? But the real action happened in the last 5 years, right? When the focus was more on personalization.
Absolutely.
With the advent of AI coming in and the buzz around the social media, the brand started kind of personalizing based on the customer needs and so on and so forth.
Now, sir, when we talk about digital channels, I believe that Genesys has become a bit of a thought leader there, right? Tell us about how you envision and your approach to building those digital channels and what's enabled you to achieve that success.
I think the adoption of digital channels has been driven from both sides. When I say both sides, both from the supply side as well as from the demand side. If you look at it today, most of the businesses are challenged on the ARPU factor, although ARPU is more of a telecom term. But whether it is telecom or aviation or banking or whichever industry that you are in, the average revenue is getting challenged, right? Or it is not at least growing the way that we wanted it to grow, right? At the same time, we are a country of 1.4 billion people. Obviously, the number of customers are increasing day by day, which is good for the business. Which also means that the number of interactions are going up. So on the one hand, the ARPU is challenged. At the same time, the number of interactions are going up, right? One of our studies says that in the next 2 to 3 years time period, the number of interactions are going to go double. So obviously there is a huge pressure on businesses today to bring the cost to serve, part of it, right? Which means you need to reduce the cost. So obviously that's when the shift happened from serving on voice channels to digital channels, because the cost of serving on a voice channel could be anywhere between 10 to like in terms of tens of cents. But the same thing on a digital channel is going to cost you a few cents or even less than a cent depending upon the channel of choice. So obviously supply side has its own challenges to kind of shift from digital to voice channels. Now, look at it from the demand side, which is the supply side, you and me, right? I mean, the demographics, especially on the age, is kind of driving the preference here, right? If you look at the baby boomers or kind of Gen X, if you look at it, we all grew up and then we think that the problem is not solved unless and until we talk to each other, right? But the current generation, if you look at it, the millennials or the Gen Z, I mean, they want to do everything within the pane of window that they are looking at, right? My mom would always pick up the phone and speak to somebody to get her things resolved, but my daughter just wants to stick to the app or the kind of whatever she is working on to get it resolved.
And messaging only.
Yeah. So the supply side had its own kind of reasons to move to digital, and the demand side were driving the preference. Obviously, we moved from, very voice-centric to digital, this thing. Now, if you look at it, does it mean that the voice is going down? Obviously not. It still is a major portion of it. It will continue to do so, but we will see a lot of, adoption to the digital channels in the coming future, rather.
All right. And sir, for the companies that are still resisting migrating to the cloud, right? What words of advice might you have? How is this essentially a decision to their detriment?
If you look at it, cloud is not an option anymore because it has become a must as we, look at especially the post-pandemic era, right? The primary reason is because organizations are finding it really difficult to manage the on-premise assets and then create skills around managing it, going through the infrastructure components and going through the maintenance, management and all this stuff. I mean, imagine if it comes to a BPO, obviously, they're not even doing it across multiple locations in the country, but they're doing it across multiple countries across the globe. So kind of managing it was becoming very, very difficult for them. So that was the primary reason for them to do. But apart from that, if you look at it, scalability is another thing, right? Because with the dynamics today, the organizations are growing fast. I mean, they can start off with maybe a few hundred agents and then grow to a few thousands and tens and thousands of agents in no time. The other one is flexibility, right? Is my business going to be the same over a period of time? There could be seasonal peaks. I can go up, I can go down, and all that stuff, right? So that flexibility is what the cloud offers. It may sound a little technical, but if you actually look at it, the other reason why they are looking at cloud is managing an on-premise monolithic architecture is very, very difficult because of the upgrades, updates, and so on and so forth. But when you start consuming the same thing from the cloud, it's all microservices-driven architecture. What it means is you don't have to wait for the next upgrade to get some features added to this, right? You won't even know that on a Wednesday evening we would have pushed some features onto the cloud, and Thursday morning you log in and then start consuming it.
Seamlessly.
Right? Exactly. So the ease of use, the security, the flexibility, the agility, and the scalability is what is driving customers towards cloud.
All right. Well, sir, you've talked at length about customer experience, but what I do want to ask you is about how artificial intelligence, in your view, is poised to transform that customer experience.
I think AI is a buzzword. We heard it so many times. Let's look at the customer journey and then see how AI is playing a pivotal part in each one of that, right? The first thing is, you or me call a brand. AI helps in identifying who you are and who I am, rather, right? I'm saying the step starts with identifying. The next step in the customer journey is to understand the intent why we are reaching out to the brand today, right? I mean, you may be calling them, or you're reaching out to them to maybe to get some mortgage loan or insurance or whatever it is, right? So AI now identifies the intent based on the journey that you have gone through in the past, whether it could be in the social media, or it could be on their internet website, or it could be on their app, or whatever it is. Yeah. The third stage is to understand the outcome, possible outcome that you're looking at today. Parallelly, AI is also looking at the thousands of agents who have walked into the kind of shop floor today, and they could map their skills and expertise against each one of them.
Exactly.
Right? What happens is now I know what the outcome the customer is expecting, and the AI engine also knows who among those 1,000 agents is best suited to kind of address this particular concern.
And
right?
deliver.
Exactly. That leads to the customer delight because the customer is now being addressed by an expert in that particular field at that exact point in time. Now, it doesn't stop here, right? It gets interesting as we move on. As the agent is engaging with the customer, AI is also looking at the agent and seeing what is his performance level, right? I mean, for example, you reached out for a mortgage loan, the AI is looking at the chat window and saying that, oh, the customer is talking about mortgage, how about adding an insurance as part of the home loan, right?
Right.
Obviously, there is an option for you to upsell and cross-sell. Finally, AI is also learning through the entire journey, taking feedbacks and making the journey even more better for the next customer, right? So it can only get better and better from where we started. So AI absolutely is phenomenal, and like so many people said, it's not going to take away jobs in my view. It's only going to make things faster and smarter.
Well, sir, we certainly look forward to that. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
The next session was based on the global energy agenda, where Rajkumar Singh, Minister of Power and Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, talked about the developments in the energy sector.
Generation and the consumption has gone up by 60% as compared to 14-15, 60%. Per capita consumption has again got up by that much. So that's a growth of almost 60%.
Speaking in the panel discussion on the global energy agenda, Naveen Munjal, Director Business Development and Commercial, Apraava Energy, briefed about his forward-looking plans and why the government intervention is paramount for shaping the future energy landscape in India.
Naveen Munjal, in your 22 years history, you have developed a portfolio of 3 gigawatt of renewables and coal power. You have a target of doubling your clean energy portfolio by 2025. Can you triple your capacity by 2030, and what type of policies or government support you need to do that?
We have set ourselves a target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. We're also talking about hydrogen. We're talking about battery storage of battery and pump storage of about 50 gigawatt. Clearly, these are very, very large numbers. It's a paradigm shift from what we've done in the past, about 15-20 gigawatt a year, to about 50 gigawatt going forward each year. And in terms of what are the interventions we would require, there are multiple interventions to address this very large increase in the installed capacity. We believe one of the key needs will be financing. And I think the state-owned banks and the financial institutions will have to have enhanced capital. We will have to have tie-ups with multilateral agencies. We have to create a bond market. Insurance and pension funds can possibly invest. So financing is actually going to be a massive need. The newer technologies will need nursing by the government. They will need to be encouraged. The land reforms that need to be put in place. We need to have a structural legislative reform for that. And last but not the least, on the regulatory front, there are challenges. There are 3 levels of adjudication. And as we all know, justice delayed is justice denied.
Rajiv Ranjan Mishra, Managing Director, Apraava Energy, also spoke on how India can achieve the target of renewable capacity of 500 gigawatts by 2030.
This target has been around for a while, and the amount of bids that are required to achieve that, which is about 50 gigawatts a year, we have now started seeing. The second area which is crucial would be announcing also the transmission schemes, including substations. When we are talking about 50 gigawatts a year, let's say 30 gigawatt or 35 gigawatt of solar and 15 gigawatt of wind, this is unprecedented high quantity and would need significant addition to the transmission network. So what the government and the industry has to do to enable India to get to 500 gigawatts by 2030, and the main challenges are as follows. First, creation of demand, announcing the bids which the government has done and sticking to them, so that industry knows which bids are coming when. The second is making sure that transmission systems, including grid substation, are announced well in advance and in synchronization with the capacities and the bids, so that the private sector can prepare for it. The third is to do with the supply chain issues. On solar, we still do not have enough supply chain perhaps to add 50 gigawatt a year. On wind, we at the moment only seem to have 3 turbine manufacturers in the country, although the supply chain itself is largely indigenized. And both of these policies need to be looked at to ensure that this amount of renewable energy can be added. And the fourth is that this amount of renewable energy would require storage. Therefore, battery storage, pumped hydro storage, they need to be developed. Those bits need to come up in due time as well, so that they can be grown together. And finally, there will need to be a lot of systems, including computer systems and software solutions, to integrate this amount of informed power into the electricity grid. And that is another area where the government policies should look to help industry.
Next in line was an exclusive interview with Kami Vishwanathan, President, Middle East, Indian Subcontinents and Africa, Fedex, where she talked about the trends in the logistics industry and how Fedex is leveraging on it. But first, let's hear from what she opined in a panel discussion on the topic of power shifts to profits, the age of meritocracy. Take a look.
Productivity is not just about doing more or producing more outcome. It's also about thinking differently and producing different outcomes.
Yes.
And I think that's where the diversity, not just in race or gender or sexual orientation, but also in terms of the generational thought process is very important. And I think one of the things we all need to be thinking about as organizations is how do we really leverage this diversity for better outcomes and not be restricted by a more narrow definition of productivity, but really how do we bring in talent wherever it exists, and in whatever, whether it's virtual or whether it's hybrid or whether it's at the office, how do we provide access, and especially now the technology has enabled us to do that,
right,
to bring in talent wherever it resides into the organization so that we build on this diversity of thought. And I think that's maybe an angle to think about as well.
Ma'am, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thanks for having me.
For sake of some context setting, what are the broad industry trends that is taking the logistics industry to the next level?
I think in the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen tremendous supply chain disruption with a great degree of variability in demand and supply and shocks in the system. And I think as a result, global businesses are starting to think about the importance of building supply chain resiliency and adaptability.
Sure.
I think we're seeing that India is going to be a significant beneficiary of that. And at Fedex, we look at this opportunity in 3 buckets. The transformation that we are seeing, and I just outlined, on the one hand, offers us the opportunity to support global businesses with a plug-and-play logistics framework, a one-stop solution that addresses all their needs, whether it's express or air freight or ocean freight or warehousing and supply chain.
Sure.
It also enables us to offer, I think, technology in a way that provides the visibility across the spectrum of their needs. And the second pillar we focus on is in building our technology solutions and the innovation that supports this transformation. We are partnering with startups in India, for example. We've launched Fedex Innovation Lab, where we're looking to engage with external companies, startups who are building new technologies and have new business models that will then inform our transformation vision. We're also collaborating with the IITs in setting up centers of excellence for more sustainable and smarter supply chains. So for us, the opportunity is really about connecting these dots, and I think that's what makes it so unique in India at this point, and I do think we're at an inflection point here.
Well, ma'am, thank you so much for sharing your larger India-specific agenda. We wish you and the larger Fedex team all the continued success.
Thank you.
The ET Now Global Business Summit 2024, presented by the Times Group, has been at the forefront of driving a singular agenda for scripting economic change by connecting the building blocks of economics for India and the globe. ET Now GBS serves as a conduit for corporates and governments to secure investments from domestic and international allies that will become a part of India's growth story.